word, a key word for listeners to maybe keep in mind is the word fusionism. And fusionism was the idea that cultural traditionalists and laissez-faire free market capitalism people could work together. And that fusionism was sort of the basis of the Reagan coalition. And that's sort of cracking up a little bit right now. Like Vince said, ordinary people are sort of getting up and looking around and realizing that they got a bad deal. They offered their political support to the right for 30 years. And what have they gotten out of it? A fentanyl epidemic and declining wages and the inability to raise a family on one income.
Yeah.
All of that stuff has gotten worse. And so they're looking around and asking, what can we do to make this deal, to change the terms of this deal? Protectionism is probably going to be part of that. I mean, in terms of things that we can actually do to those companies to make them pay more, I mean, there's always higher corporate tax rates. I mean, I think one of the big failures of the Trump years is that he was supposed to represent this new kind of conservatism that was protectionist, that was against the empire, that kind of thing. But his signature legislative achievement was a big fat corporate tax cut.
Thank you, Arthur. You know what I mean? That's what I've been trying to say forever. Thank you, bro. But anyway, continue. I apologize.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say about how this hasn't quite trickled down to the policy level. The way we're having the conversation with big tech, it's not how do we get Google to pay more? It's Google's a threat to me and we need to deal with that threat. That's a very different way of looking at a policy problem.
Right.
It's not just that Google needs to pay more, it's that Google is actively doing things that are harmful. And so it calls for a different sort of response. If that really is the problem, that Google is like a clear and present danger for people or something like that, it's hard to see how anything would be really up to the task aside from like antitrust or something like that. There are many ways to do antitrust with Google. The obvious one is splitting off the Android store, splitting off the ad business, splitting off YouTube. There are a zillion ways to do it, but just scatter this thing to the four winds because it's hurting us. It's sort of the id of conservative anti-big tech. But the right now, the policy side of the GOP is still in the era of Paul Ryan, I suppose.
Can I ask one question of Arthur real quick about protectionism? Because I feel like people are making it seem like Trump invented protectionism and that this is something new. But I feel like in the 80s, that was part of the rhetoric of Ronald Reagan was protectionism. And
it was.
And I would argue that particularly if you were on the bottom rungs of society, it didn't help. It in some ways made us less competitive. I remember, buy American cars and we want to do everything, the kind of protectionist way. And my question to you right now is, with China as a looming threat and China wanting to go around the globe, at least a threat to American hegemony, and China's, going into Africa, building infrastructure in Africa and controlling it, then going into South America, building infrastructure and controlling it. If we're protectionists, aren't we going to all of a sudden wake up and find China as the leading global power?
I think those are separate problems. I mean, protectionism is a way of fixing our trade imbalances. Right now we have a big trade deficit, and we didn't have to have that. The one thing about Reagan that maybe is worth defending him on a little bit, and I'm far from an uncritical admirer of Reagan, but he saved Harley Davidson, for instance, pretty iconic American company. He did that with tariffs, and I think it's better that we make motorcycles here than China making them. And the record is actually, if we expand the timeline a little bit, it was protectionism that made America a manufacturing powerhouse. This is the reason why people supported Henry Clay, the American system. That was protectionism, and that's what turned America into a manufacturing powerhouse. It's laissez-faire free market stuff that has hollowed out our manufacturing because everything can get done cheaper somewhere else.